So with us today is Rob Roquitte, the CEO and founder of eCIO, and he's here to share with us his insights on what it's like to be an entrepreneur who's been in business for less than a year, suddenly finding himself in the middle of a global pandemic and trying to stay focused on building his company, while also being well aware that we're now in a completely different situation than we were in when he started his company not so long ago. So Rob, I thank you for joining us.
Thanks, John. Good to be here with you.
So first off, why don't you, if you could spend a few moments and share with us, what does eCIO do, who are the customers that you're serving, and how do you serve them?
Yeah, sure thing. So eCIO is an online financial advisory service targeting nonprofit organizations. And it's a company we launched. I had worked in that market for a long period of time, primarily working with large nonprofit organizations. And the technology platform that we built out enables us to work with smaller nonprofits that have smaller asset pools. So in essence, that's what our company is all about, is serving nonprofit organizations and helping them manage their investment portfolios.
And you have a certain, size of company nonprofit that you're targeting? Or are these like very large nonprofits, very small?
Yeah, so it's more driven by the assets that they have available to invest. So in my previous life, I worked primarily with organizations that had $20 million and more in investable assets. And eCIO is targeting organizations that have $500,000 up to about $20 million in investable assets. And part of the reason we didn't serve that market at my previous firm was because it just was not a scalable business. Typically, we were meeting face-to-face with boards and committees to review their investment portfolios. And for smaller investment pools, there's less revenue. So it wasn't really possible to jump on a plane and be at a board meeting. And so that was the whole idea behind eCIO, was build a technology platform that was scalable, where we could serve these organizations in more of a virtual way as opposed to jumping on a plane and being there in person.
So you're describing the kind of opportunity that we've seen happen in a lot of different industries as a result of the information revolution and what's happening with computing technologies around the world, frankly. And I think what you're describing is a business model that was built around providing financial advice and support services to nonprofits that had a certain cost structure associated with it, including flying staff members around to meet with different nonprofit boards. That serves, I would imagine, a group of nonprofit organizations in the marketplace quite well. If they can afford and they have a portfolio large enough where they can have somebody show up in person. But there's a whole group of nonprofits that perhaps aren't being served well by that current cost structure. Maybe they have the same sort of needs of trying to figure out how to manage their portfolios and provide strong financial stewardship, but they don't really have the ability to afford to fly people around on airplanes because their portfolios aren't yet large enough. How'd you come up with the idea to serve this particular market? Did you have any personal experiences on the nonprofit side?
Yeah, well, really two ways, John. One, in my role serving larger nonprofit organizations and managing their assets, as we built that business for my previous firm, we had smaller nonprofits come to us looking for help. And unless they were local, we declined to pursue those opportunities. So I knew there was some market demand out there. And then on the flip side, in reference to your question, I also sit on the board of some nonprofit organizations, and seeing what was available to us on the investment side was very limited. And because of my role of sitting on the board, I was conflicted, couldn't offer our own services. And when I looked to see what was out there, it was very limited, mostly retail financial advisors and banks. And to your point, the cost structure was very, very high. So part of the value proposition that eCIO brings to the table is we're able, on average, to cut the expenses in half for these nonprofit organizations, and at the same time give them a solution that's really geared towards that type of an organization. And the key distinction is that those assets are typically overseen by an investment committee or a board. So you have a group that's involved in the decision-making process, as opposed to a wealth customer, which is you or me. There's one decision maker, or perhaps a couple if it's a husband and wife. So, we built our entire offering around that concept of serving a group, and that's really where the technology comes into play, is to help us communicate effectively and efficiently with a group of individuals that are charged with oversight of the assets.
One of the things that I've really noticed is I've had the pleasure of serving on the boards of several nonprofits that are much smaller. And so what's really enjoyable about that for me is that they're really targeted to the local community, and they really understand the needs of the local community, but they often don't have the resource base to afford, they often have like small endowments and some financial resources, but they don't really have the assets to bring on really professional management. And so often what happens is, there'll be a few members on the board on these boards that have backgrounds in finance, and there'll often be a struggle, sort of a disconnect between those running the nonprofits and those with a lot of financial expertise as far as like document creation and reporting and an understanding of what the portfolio is like. Because a lot of times the folks running the nonprofits, they got into nonprofit management because they have a real passion for serving the community, not for finance. And then you'll have these people that are really experts in finance that also have a lot of financial resources that they could use to support the nonprofits, but then they lose confidence sometimes in management because they see that management doesn't really know how to be a good steward of these resources in many cases. And something like what you're working on here that really helps the nonprofit get the most out of the expertise that's around them, I think is really potentially quite beneficial. So just to ask you quite now to focus more down on sort of like your role now as a CEO, what was sort of the strategy of your company before COVID-19, the pandemic affected the world, and what is it now, and basically what has changed in what you're focusing on?
Yeah, well, in some respects, John, for our business, things haven't necessarily changed that dramatically. And in some regards, you might argue that this environment may actually be helpful to us. So with our technology platform, the way we're able to scale and offer these services is by utilization of technology. And so the Zoom meeting you and I are doing today is how we normally conduct business. Because again, we can't get on a plane and fly out to see these small nonprofits. So from that perspective, our offering continues as it was initially designed and conceptualized. What has changed is with the volatility in the market, I believe the sales cycle that we're dealing with, which is already relatively long, is probably going to be a bit longer. I'm not 100% certain of that, but that's just my gut feel. So one of the things I had our team do when this started unfolding and it became apparent that there's big volatility in the market, things started to shut down. They weren't as shut down as they are today, but you could see some of that coming, is I had our team take our board portal. So our technology platform has a portal that each organization has access to. It's basically their own portal. And we built that portal so we could deliver investment information to the board members in an efficient and effective way. So videos like we're doing now, we all push through the portal. But we also built it so that content could be uploaded, documents could be uploaded. From an investment perspective, there are things like an investment policy statement, perhaps a spending policy. You might have agendas and meeting minutes that all go in that portal. And as we started rolling the product out to clients and talking to prospects, a lot of them really liked that feature and started asking us if they could use that more broadly beyond the investment program. And so we started adding some features based upon that feedback and really built it into a portal that can be used for overall board management or committee management services. So one of the things I did is when this was unfolding, I told the team, look, all these organizations can use this board management software that we've built. And if things continue to unwind where we can't meet face-to-face, which is kind of where we're at today, or person-to-person, I guess we're meeting face-to-face, but person-to-person, it becomes more important to have video integrated into our offering. It was something we had always envisioned having, but it was, we've got a list of things that need to be developed. And that was, relatively low on the priority list. So we immediately moved that to top of list. I had our development team work over the weekend to build out kind of an MVP of a integrated video offering, which we were able to do. We launched a week ago. Now we've been fine tuning the features of it. So it's there, and we're out now with a marketing campaign offering the board management software along with the integrated video conferencing free of charge throughout this kind of crisis period that we're in. So we're trying to help out some of these nonprofits who are caught flat-footed and maybe have never used video conferencing and need a platform. And we're offering up our platform, regardless of whether or not we have the investment assets, as a way to help these nonprofit organizations. And it will also give us some valuable feedback on the features that we've built into the system. So, that's one way we've responded to this changing environment.
And how about on the financing side? So, a lot of entrepreneurs that I've talked to are being told by their investors, hey, you should plan for a 24-month period where you're not going to be able to raise additional equity capital and try and make the numbers work during that period. How are you thinking about the financing side of the business?
Yeah, well, certainly you have to be concerned. Risk taking has come way in given the volatility in the markets. And so I would anticipate the same, that capital raising is going to be more difficult looking forward over the next 12 months. It's a guess. Certainly with the action in the stimulus bill that was passed in Washington, $2 trillion being pushed through the economy, it is possible that we have a more of a V-shaped kind of situation where we have a huge downtake in the economy, which I think is absolutely happening right now. But perhaps that kicks back up, in which case maybe it's not as difficult. But I don't know if that will unfold. The other option is this turns into a long, drawn-out situation. So I think capital raise is going to be more difficult without question, given the circumstances that we're faced with.
And what advice do you have for other entrepreneurs that are out there that are in the same situation where suddenly you're in a completely different macro environment?
Yeah, it's tough. The way I think of it, and what I've talked to our team about, is there are certain things that are out of our control, and certainly this global pandemic is something that really is out of our control. We don't know exactly how long it goes on and how it unwinds, what kind of fiscal and monetary stimulus comes. So the important thing for us is to focus on things that we can control. And that's moving the business forward, continuing to be out there, marketing our program the way we were before, to be thoughtful about, some, I don't know if you call them pivots, but some adjustments that we can make in our strategy. So for us, that was, moving forward very quickly with the board management and video conferencing software offering, so that we can continue to get traction in the marketplace, even if maybe those investment clients are slower to onboard to eCIO. The other thing that we've done in another area that we have control over is, if you look at the platform we've built an ideal platform to serve clients in a virtual world. And a lot of financial advisory firms are kind of, old, stodgy. They've been around for 50 years. They do business the old-fashioned way. And now they're caught flat-footed, because how do they interact with their clients? They basically are relegated to the telephone. They don't have a good way to deliver investment reports and updates on the portfolio. So, the other thought we've had, and I'm just in kind of at the early stages of, is can we take our platform and offer it in a white label kind of basis to other financial advisory firms? And so I'm reaching out to kind of test market that a little bit. So I think the things you got to focus on is, take what you have right now, think about what are the product features and benefits that might actually be advantageous in this environment. And then can you take any of those and really emphasize them, or add on a product feature, or add on another product that might actually get more traction in this environment? I mean, there's certainly the possibility that this environment creates opportunities for a lot of startup and young companies that are able to pivot, quickly move, and also don't have the burden of maybe a bunch of legacy revenue that all of a sudden dries up and evaporates. We're operating in an environment where, we have revenue, but it's not huge revenue. We're projecting it to grow very rapidly. And if we can figure out how to keep that growth going, I think we'll come out of this, just fine. So some of these startup companies might actually be in a really good position to take advantage of the situation.
Thank you very much, Rob. Just as we wrap up here, I thought it'd be great just to ask you to quickly summarize what the core features are of your portfolio. You mentioned it earlier, but just kind of give us a quick checklist of these are the 8 or the 10 or the 12 things that the eCIO platform does right now for nonprofits. It's available and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. There's two big things that we do. One is on the advisory side, and I call it the robo-advisor. So you've seen Betterment, Wealthfront. Those were some earlier pioneers in the robo-advising space for individuals. We've replicated a lot of that and automated a lot of the features for these nonprofits. So things like risk assessment, we've created an online system to take input from a number of people that might be overseeing the assets. We've wrapped that right into the asset allocation modeling process. We have the investment tracks we've built. We've made them relatively simple and easy to understand. And then the whole board management software solution, which enables us to quickly communicate effectively and efficiently with those boards. And for example, one of the things we've done throughout this downturn in the markets has been pushing out live video updates on what's transpired in the markets. So we built the system with the idea that we'll push out quarterly updates on the markets because that's typically when a board would look at it. But in this rapidly changing environment, we started producing really weekly updates as kind of the markets dictated, and we could immediately push those out. So I could video them and we could have them out within hours, and our clients had at their fingertips up-to-date information about what was going on in the markets and whether or not they should be taking any action. So the communication piece is huge, and that's the primary reason why I pushed the team to get our video integration, where now we can have live calls just like this by the push of a button within the portal, so we can immediately communicate, and more importantly, they can communicate, amongst their board members. So that's a huge feature. And then last, John, I would just say from a cost perspective, we're a cost leader out there, on average able to save these organizations about half the cost of what they're paying. And in this environment, that's incredibly important, where everyone's scrambling for every last dollar. If you can cut costs, it makes sense to do it. So those are the key features, I would say, of what we bring to the table into the marketplace today.
Lowering the costs, increasing the confidence amongst the board members about how the nonprofit is functioning, in part through like better communication and record keeping. It sounds like a very, very helpful value proposition. And I really like your idea of thinking about, as you're adjusting to what's happening in the crisis, is that there's a lot of asset management firms, brokerages, and so on. They're going to be trying to find ways to serve clients that are within, like $1 million to $4 or $5 million asset level, maybe. And you have a way to help them do that, to help them get their expertise to those folks. So the white label solution, I really feel like is very interesting and compelling adaptation as well. Well, thank you very much, Rob. I really appreciate you spending the time with us.
Absolutely, John. My pleasure. Look forward to seeing you, hopefully, person to person at some time here in the near future.
That's right. As you can probably see from the background, everyone's sequestered in their homes right now, and you can see that Rob is in his home office where all of us are locked down to help fight COVID-19. Well, thank you, Rob.
You're welcome, John. Have a good one.